This is TWiT.
You remember last week that Apple, after paying OpenAI, I want to say $0 billion, got a non-voting seat or on their board, an observer seat, I think they were calling it, which is exactly what Microsoft got after they gave them $13 billion.
Right.
So
I'm sure OpenAI is sending billions of dollars to Apple.
Yeah. There is a feeling that Microsoft is not happy about that. I don't think you need too much of an imagination to think that might be true.
Yeah.
And then this morning we got up and OpenAI has dropped both Microsoft and Apple from their board seats to apparently, according to reports, this is for regulatory reasons.
Yeah,
right?
I saw this and I really wanted to know what you guys thought of this because there's something going on, right?
Well, here's what I can tell you, and this is just a fact because we just talked about this. The EU, the UK CMA, and I want to say the FTC, but if not the DOJ, but the US government for sure, have all in the past announced investigations of this relationship because the feeling is they have a non-standard partnership so they can avoid Microsoft acquiring OpenAI, which would open them up to an antitrust investigation. And I think we all agree, probably not going to get approved, right? So there's this general feeling out in the world that they're doing something sly here to avoid that regulatory scrutiny. So all three of these I would say the three most important regulatory bodies in the world all said, nope, we're going to investigate it anyway. And last week, the EU said, yeah, it doesn't break the law. It's fine.
Wow.
Which is kind of interesting, right? So now, remember, they shifted their investigation. They're still looking at it, but from another angle, an anti-competitive. I described it as the EU version of the Sherman Antitrust Act investigation, right? It's an anti-competitive investigation. It's a different thing because they can never stop investigating. But okay, regulatory reasons, I guess. But you were just cleared by the EU. So what's going on?
What is this really about?
You know what? Honestly, in a weird way, it might be tied to this competition issue the EU raised, which we all not we all, but some people have kind of poo-pooed. There's a feeling in the United States that the EU will go after any company as long as it's American. But honestly, that's not really fair, right? I mean, they go after these giant big tech companies.
They go after giant tech companies. The fact that they happen to be American is well.
I mean, USA, but they're American. So
the question mark is when you look at a Sony or Nintendo, right? The exceptions in the case that often aren't scrutinized.
Yep. By the way, the other, I don't want to go too deep in this, but I do get a little irritated with people and comments and stuff on my site. I can tell you one thing no American has even looked at even for 1 second is what else is the EU investigating? If you actually looked, a lot.
It's a lot.
So we hear about the big tech stuff and we get all, upset about it. But the truth is these guys go after a lot of companies. A lot of them are in the EU.
Yeah.
They stop a lot of mergers. It's not just us. So
the Siemens, the Maersks, the Mercedes-Benz, big companies.
They're all over there.
Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of them are what? European. So just throwing that out there, just a little balance. But tied to this anti-competitive notion is this almost like you almost get this collusion kind of vibe off of this, don't you? Like Apple and Microsoft are competitors in some ways, but they're also partners in some ways, right? Microsoft and OpenAI also technically partners and competitors in some ways, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to prove this kind of thing unless someone's stupidly sent a drunken text message at 3:00 in the morning. But the notion that these companies and maybe others have been look, we're all doing pretty good. We're all in the top 5, biggest companies in the world, whatever it is. Why don't we keep it that way? Collusion is a tough thing to prove, but I wonder if it isn't related to that. You'll notice a company no one's ever heard of does not have a non-voting person on OpenAI's board. It's Apple and Microsoft, literally the 2 biggest companies in the world.
But the Microsoft one came out of the Sam Altman firing, right? That was a mistake on Satch's part, but only because the board was having in-camera meetings, right? And as opposed to a general meeting or a public meeting. They did in-camera meetings, and that's the one thing an observer can do when not actually holding a fiduciary responsibility to the board is that they can be in an in-camera meeting.
Yep. So Microsoft's official stance on this is like, look, obviously in the wake of what happened with Sam Altman getting fired, then coming back, we had some concerns, and we wanted to be there to make sure, whatever. And their public stance is, look, we've been doing this now for whatever, 6-9 months. We feel like everything's in a good place. They are better run now. They have a better board, or a more amenable board, however you want to say it, than they did late last year. In our opinion, everything's okay. There's absolutely no way everything's okay from Microsoft's perspective, to be clear, because Apple's there. I just want to be super clear about this, but that's their stance. So all we can do is speculate. It's fun.
I think you hit on the big one. You put $13 billion in, and you got an observer seat. Apple's put nothing in, and they're going to get an observer seat. Like, that devalues the seat, so nobody should have a seat. Like, make it go away. But I think the bigger one is we're hearing about a restructuring of OpenAI as a whole. Like, let's give up on the not-for-profit thing and admit what the other thing that's interesting is for a privately held company, they're publishing revenue numbers. Yeah. Right. When they talking 3.4 billion so far this year.
Yep. They're going to be okay.
Well, also the point is, why do you publish that number when you don't, public companies are required to? You're not a public company. Why are you doing this? You're positioning yourself.
Yep. This is kind of a weird comparison maybe, but the corporate structure of OpenAI is actually very similar to that of Raspberry Pi Foundation, where it's a nonprofit, but there's a for-profit arm, and Raspberry Pi just went public, by the way, the for-profit part of it, I think, or maybe the whole thing. But OpenAI is probably going to be a little bigger than Raspberry Pi.
Just a little bit,
just a little bit bigger.
Itty bitty.
But there are some parallels there. It's kind of interesting. I do think we want to save the world vibe that they were trying to throw off originally.
Susquehanna is gone, right? Like, the argument for OpenAI and this entire structure was to pull those best and brightest minds out of Google Brain back in the day and put them out in the public. Well, all those folks have now left OpenAI to go off and start their own AI startups to make their $1 billion, because they're not going to make it at OpenAI.
Because they're not. That's right. And maybe,
and that might even be the pressure to restructure OpenAI. We're not going to be able to retain the talent unless they get to share in this. We need a structure that allows for options and MA and share allocations to our principal employees.
Yep. And it's probably not coincidental that this new structure will much more closely resemble the thing Sam Altman has frankly kind of wanted all along, right? Which is, he's not really been as on board with that whole save the world, stuff. So, there you go.
Well, it turns the other side of this is, since GPT-2, they weren't releasing the source code anyway because it was considered too dangerous. Because if you just put that code out there where anybody could run it, you can do really nefarious things. The cloud as the gatekeeper for these tools has actually served in a pseudo-regulatory position, right? That it's what's, the folks in Wisconsin that stood up a machine learning model to run for a seat in government. They were able to say, nope, that's being turned off, right? If it was running independently, you couldn't do that.
Right. Yeah, I will say the one thing that is consistent about OpenAI is that I don't think we're ever really going to understand what this company's doing. Like, I think
but why would you presume that they know? Like,
I'm not. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to suggest that. I'm just saying, they just remain a mystery.
Now,
they're very.
OpenAI was formed by a group of tech billionaires that were not happy with what Google was doing. Then they lied, underfunded it, left it stranded. It was never supposed to succeed. They just everything got screwed up when it worked. There's the problem. As long as they were limping along as an AI project that doesn't do anything, none of this would change. Once the billions show up, it's problematic.
This is like the Eddie Murphy joke about everybody getting drunk on election night and voting for Jesse Jackson, and they wake up in the morning and he won. And it's like it works. They were like, wait, what are you talking? We've been babbling nonsense for 10 years. What do you mean it works?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was a surprise to everybody. I don't know. It's
no. I think it was absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's because you would have had a better plan if it wasn't.
Right. Right. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And ultimately, this is like a Twilight Zone episode where the little kid has magic powers,
Yeah.
like nobody could defy him and he doesn't make any sense, but
Now, if you think for a moment that any of this LLM stuff was a grand strategy, it's just not the case. Right. This is the amount of duck paddling going on underneath those ducks makes it very clear they're just making this up as they go as fast as they can.
Right. Well, that's the story of Silicon Valley.
Hey, it's me, Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet from Windows Weekly. If you want to see more and want to catch the whole show, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client or visit our website, twit.tv/WW. And of course, there's links right below me.